The talk shows Find Your Own Voice, Lead from Within. With me today, I've got Rachel G and Amanda Morel. Rachel G, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm Rachel G, the Self Growth Coach. And as well as being a coach, I also like to speak and teach on the importance of really getting to know yourself on a deeper level and to nourish a loving, authentic relationship with yourself so that you can truly love your life. Now, as a result of working with me, you will feel first, think second, and act third. You'll develop unconditional self acceptance and manifest more joy into your life. I work with spiritually minded and creative women who have been through some form of painful transition, either from a relationship, a family member, a career, and are now ready to actually create a whole and emotionally balanced life that they love. And we do that through embracing and allowing emotions and nurturing compassion, confidence, and purpose.
My name is Amanda Cottrell. I'm a teacher, an author, and an illustrator, and I help empower people through their own creative gifts. And I'm super excited to be here today. Nomza.
Am I? Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Amanda and Rachel G. So our topic today is why love isn't enough or to basically serve a relationship. Um, Basically, if you don't have skills and skills of a relationship, they help to build the foundation of a relationship. Of course, love is part of the foundation in a relationship, but when you combine the skills and they basically help you to build that a healthy relationship, and the knowledge as well. If you have the right knowledge to actually understand what relationship basically is about, your character, your basically you have to understand the relationship is about giving, it's about receiving. There are some people who love who enter a relationship and they love that person so much in a way that they will give, and when it comes to them to receive, they don't want to do that because of, sometimes it's because of childhood attachment, and there's so many things. So we're gonna try to cover some of the things. Of course, we can't cover everything. So when it comes to love, you have to understand that love is about loving someone and getting to know them, and getting to know the power of receiving, getting to know the power of giving, and the power of forgiveness, the power of communications. The list goes on. So over to you, Amanda or Rachel G, whoever wants to go first. If you guys can tell the audience, explain to the audience how you relate to the topic and your opinion as well as a professional coach, please take the stage.
I can go. I really like this topic. I usually don't come on Mondays, but I like the topic, so I wanted to come on and speak because I really think that when you look at it, like you can say like, oh, I love someone, so I have to stay with them, but essentially that's not true, because I think that you can have love for everyone in your life, and even people that you no longer are in a like intimate relationship with. Just because you love somebody doesn't mean you need to be in an intimate relationship with them. And so I really think that, and even too, if you're setting healthy boundaries and there's people in your life that you still love, you still have to be able to set healthy boundaries with them, with like family members or friends and stuff like that as well. And so essentially I think that you really need to, that sometimes people just think like love's enough for everything, but essentially it's not. And when you're trying to learn and grow to be the best version of yourself, you may have like outgrown a relationship, but still have love for that relationship and still have love for that person and gratitude for that person for what you've been through with them. And essentially I've had that happen a number of times. So I thought it's a really interesting topic, because I think so often people stay for a lot longer than they should, essentially because they're like, well, I love that person, so I just need to stay. Um, and I think that that's like an older version of you or an older version of society's views that make you think that that's the case. Because yeah, even just recently, I broke up with somebody that I still loved very, very much, but I was like, this isn't a healthy relationship for me. Like, I love you, but like, you need, like, this isn't the dynamics of our relationship aren't working for me. And so I think that that's something that you just need to think about when you are in relationship, but also when you're setting boundaries with family and friends as well. What about you, Rachel?
Yeah, I agree with everything that you just said, and it's also been my own personal experience. I mean, love, it is a feeling, and it's the fuel, certainly, and also the fire that will and has the potential to keep a relationship connection continuing to burn, shall we say. But there are those other needs that, besides love, that a relationship must have to sustain a healthy connection. If we think that to sustain a relationship is always going to be okay with just love, then we're going to go wrong. Because I think, first and foremost, my personal experience has been that if both parties aren't willing to actually do work on themselves, then all the love in the world is going to not sustain that relationship, as I said. So we must address our issues, we must address our challenges, we must address what deficiencies we have. Love will only grow when we accept and we respect and we understand and we have compatibility and we can compromise with each other. We can do self-reflection, self-growth, self-improvement. And if one party isn't really on board with that and one is evolving, the gap of starts to broaden. And yeah, love can stay there, but as you've mentioned and as Norms has mentioned, as the title suggests, it is not enough. And I think that we have to look at a relationship and treat it like a person, because there are actually three in a relationship. There's you, there's the other person, and then there's the relationship itself. And that relationship needs to also be given attention like it is a person. Because and I think another problem in that triad, in that threesome thing, is that either somebody gets to the point that they connect, but then they lose themselves in that person, or the opposite is that they don't connect, they want to stay kind of separate and not allow anybody in. And so there's this tug of war that then starts to happen. And so they forget that, well, no, we have a relationship. We've got to stay individual, but we need to be able to come together and we need to be able to grow into the relationship, if that makes sense.
I love what you said about growing into a relationship, because I really think when you go into relationships or when you're dating, you need to like look at like what is it that you want and what is it that you're willing, like there's some compromises obviously on some things that you need to do. But if you're not growing together and you're not communicating, then essentially, like you said, all the love in the world isn't going to make this relationship work, because essentially you need to be able to communicate your needs. And if you communicate your needs and they're complete, then they keep not getting met, or like your wants, then like the relationship won't grow and you can't grow together because of whatever it is that the other person is going through or that you're going through. And even though they may be like a wonderful person, that still doesn't deal with the fact that your relationship wants and needs aren't being met. And so I think like really clear communication is something that really needs to happen in a relationship in order for it to grow, regardless of how much you love that person.
I agree with both of you, Amanda and Rachel. And Amanda, you spoke about the um, people stay in a relationship for the wrong reasons. Yes, people do. It can either stay because they have children with that person and they say, I'm going to leave when the children are older, and that end up affecting the kids. Because if a relationship is not working and the kids are part of it, so everyone gets affected. But some people, they say, oh, we need to raise our kids, and then when they are older. And then also people, there are some, like my friends, that will be like making an excuse. Then they're unhappy in that relationship, but they're making an excuse that he is what he is or she is what she is because of maybe her upbringing, or because of what happened in her first relationships. Or sometimes somebody can say, maybe I've said something to trigger their action, or maybe it's my fault that he is the way he is. People find so many reasons to stay, and they're like, but I love him and I want to stay with him, but they are miserable. And also, Rachel, you mentioned that you can only grow in a relationship. But there are two things: you can only grow, or you can fall apart, basically sink into depression. So you have to choose which path you want to take, because if a relationship is not working because of compatibility, and because you're not communicating in that relationship, but there are so many things that plays a part in that relationship. But some people from the beginning, they enter a relationship, they see the signs that this person is not right for me, they're like, I'm gonna go ahead with it anywhere. And a few years down the line, because in their mind they believe that they can change someone because they love them, they're like, he's a good looking guy, she is a good looking woman, I love her so much, I cannot live without her. I call them liars. I tell my clients, when you say to somebody, I cannot live without you, that means it's a lie. You can't live without that person. You just have to learn that you're sharing your love that you've discovered is about yourself, and everything basically, like Rachel was saying, is all about it comes from within. It comes from self-love. When it comes to love, everything is like values and beliefs as well. If you are in a relationship with someone and you know that their values and their beliefs are completely different with yours. I meet people who are Christian, and they want someone who is not a Christian, and they believe that they're gonna drag that person to church. They're gonna change them. You can't change me. If I want to go to church, if I want to believe in God, it has to be a choice, not just because I love you and I'm gonna go, you're gonna drag me to church. No, it does not work like that. I've seen people, they go through, like, they're like, they love God, they love going to church, and they get married to somebody because they love them so, that person so much, and they're like, he's gonna change, he's gonna come to church, and the man or the woman is like, I believe in God, but I don't want to go to church. And they're like, you don't get me. Basically, the things they start, the start fights, they start, but at the beginning, if you know that, like myself, I'm a Christian, my spouse is not a Christian, and I had no reason. Just before, when we met, I was like, before we go further with this relationship, we've got to understand that I'm a Christian and I'm not going to drag you to church, so you're not going to come between me and God. So we have to know where we stand. He was like, I believe in God, and but I don't go to church. And I was like, okay, as long we are cool. And when I pray, he says, please pray for me. He sends messages and say, pray for me for this. But I've never said that I'm going to drag you to church or anything. It has to be a choice. And that's why Rachel, compatibility and the connection as well is very, very, very important. And over to you, Rachel. What advice would you give someone who is watching right now and they are in a relationship and it's not working and they are really, really hurting and they want to get out, but they don't know, they don't have confidence, because everything is all about confidence, because we fear the unknown. So what advice would you give someone that is fearing the unknown? I think different advice on this one, Amanda, for different opinion as well. I think it will help as well, because we fear, like myself, who was my biggest fear, to walk away from my relationship, because I didn't know the unknown for tomorrow. If I walk away, how am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to go on basically on my own? I'm comfortable with this relationship, but if I walk out tomorrow, I'll be on my own. And that was my fear. So over to you, Rachel.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually, you know, the exact situation that I've found myself in currently. So go back to the end of last year, I knew like I knew there was something starting to stir within me that was telling me that something that I want to pursue, like to have my best life, I was starting to get the signs that that isn't going to happen with this relationship. There's nothing wrong with what was going on in the relationship per se, but I started to feel less and less satisfied and less happy with what I could see was the relationship has met its maximum that I'm going to get out of this. And you go through a lot of guilt because you know you're going to hurt the other individual. And if you get too enmeshed in those feelings, you'll stay there and caught up in this cycle of guilt, resentment. And so you might say that you love that person, but you're not actually doing them any favors by having that cycle going on. And so I started to pull back and actually look within myself and ask myself, what is it that you need, Rachel? What is it that you're wanting that you need to go out and now start living? And I've turned the focus very much on me and started giving myself what I needed rather than expecting it from my partner. Now that could have gone two ways. As I started doing more work on myself with what I needed to do to be able to have the courage to actually step forward and go along the path that I wanted to pursue, that could have ignited something in him to also want to join on his separate path, but to also think, hey, you know, I'm getting inspired by this. I want to also do something and come with me. What I got was a resistance to, I don't like what you're becoming. I don't like what you're doing. And I know that was not like a personal attack. It was more that he could feel that there was starting to be this shift between us. And it was almost like a grabbing hold. No, come back and be the person that you was, because that makes me feel comfortable. But I'm not in a relationship to make somebody else feel comfortable and to stay at a place where I'm not satisfied, but I'm keeping another person happy. And so when I started to take ownership of what I wanted to feel each and every day, and knowing that I'm worthy of having what I want in life, and that I only have this one chance to do it as Rachel. So it started to give me the more confidence and a belief in myself that no matter what, if I follow my good feelings, if I follow what feels good, the outcome, even though it's unknown what my future is going to hold for me, it's going to be the right one. That's something I truly believe in. If I stay in a relationship for the wrong reasons and I'm denying something for myself, then you know, it's going to be a mediocre life, and it's going to be one that, you know, I don't get the best of myself out of. And so is that good for either of us? Because then I'm not going to be showing up for my partner the best way that I can be. And so all we're doing is bringing each other down, and we're settling for less just because it's familiar and because we don't want to go into the unknown. And so it does take courage, and it does take a belief in yourself, and a willing to want to do some work on yourself to be able to take those necessary steps forward and upwards, rather than to the side, to the left, back, down, you know, and try to navigate a relationship and that you're in to be something that it will never be, that really you're truly looking for. So yeah, I think that we can all love somebody, but there comes a time when you realize it's not right for you, because it's becoming more of a tug of war. You're more fighting than you are having fun. Sometimes the timing isn't right, you know, depending on where you're getting in on that. So for somebody who's thinking about leaving the relationship, it's because now they know that the timing of what they want and the timing of what some of their partner wants is not in sync. Sometimes we get into a relationship because we think that they need help. I had that in my previous relationship where he thought he could help me and wanted to save me. You know, but a hurt person like myself at that time, I needed to go off and help myself before he could have ever done anything to help the relationship. So it was an ideal moment for me to leave, go and help myself, and I did. And then I met my next partner, but my growth continued, and I did more work on myself, and I've transformed again. It was 10 years, 11 years of the relationship, but still, I think people need to be aware that when you are in a growth cycle and you are working on yourself, it's inevitable that things are going to change. And if that partner that you're with is not changing with you in their own right, and you're continuing to grow together, it's okay to separate ways. And in society, we've kind of been given a feeling, I think, that if you're in a relationship, you've got to be in it for the end, you know, till death do you part, as they say in marriage, right? And for me, I think that really can be harmful on a relationship, because you're already putting an expectation of heaviness on top. And we've got to get out of that. We've got to just realize that relationships are there to learn from, and that you can, and to truly love someone, you're going to let them go, and you're going to let them be free, and let them find the person that is right for them, right? And sometimes you just can't keep up with the other person. That's another, you know, you love them, but you just can't keep up with whatever it is that they're doing, whether it's because of their behavior, things that they keep doing. Maybe they're more interested in their phone or their hobbies, or they just don't want to open up to you. And that just then becomes this hard work. You know, love is like, oh, it's hard, isn't it? And I don't believe it should be. I don't think love should be hard. I think love deserves attention. It deserves to be put in. You need to put in effort. You need to be committed, but it's being committed to yourself first, so that you can be with the other person in the best possible way. So yeah.
I love what you said about timing, because I think timing is so important. And like you said, you had been in this relationship where you were still a very hurt person, and this one person came into your life and tried to essentially like help you. And I think that we can come into people's lives and help them as well. But I also think it's that like self-awareness where you're like, where you become this like, I see you and I love you, but I know that there's work that you need to do that I can't help you with, right? Or that I'm just not in a space, or sometimes it's like not strong enough to help you with that as well. Like I have things that I still need to work on that I know, and that becomes that self-awareness so that you're not a codependent. And I also think sometimes people go from relationship to relationship to relationship to relationship, and essentially they don't find out what they need for themselves. And so I think that even just spending time by yourself for a few years, essentially, or even months or whatever, however long you need, is essentially like a really huge growing opportunity. Because I think in each relationship, you have the opportunity to grow, but also in times when you are by yourself, you have the opportunity to learn and grow. And essentially, when you live in, if you lived in a family where it was like till death do you part, no matter how toxic the relationship was, you're going to come into relationship as an adult with those traumas, and with that trauma of thinking that I have to make this work no matter what. And that's essentially the type of family dynamic that I had growing up. And essentially as an adult, I've learned, sorry, my cat keeps touching my computer and she's like rubbing her face on it and keeps moving it. And so anyways, that I think that when you come from that, you have it, and that is like a centuries and generations of essentially believing that belief, and not allowing people to learn and grow and become the best versions of themselves because of whatever happened in previous generations, where you've been almost ingrained to think that you need to stay with the person till death do you part. And through a lot of counseling and going to psychologists and everything, I learned to become aware that that's not the case at all. You need to take care of yourself, and you need to love yourself, and you need to be the best version of you. And while you can meet somebody and be in a mess and still learn and grow together, I don't think that you have to completely love yourself in order to be like, okay, I love myself now, I can go out and start a relationship. As long as you're continuing to work on that path, right? You don't have to be completely like healed to be like, okay, I'm healed now, I can go. I think we're always healing, and it's always a healing journey. It's not a destination. And so I think like there's that misconception in love that you have to completely heal yourself before you can love somebody else. And I don't think that's true either, because I think healing is a journey that we're continuously on. And as we learn and grow, there are going to be more things that pop up that we have to come back and heal, and then more things, and then we continue to grow on that path. And essentially there will be things throughout life that might throw you for a loop and might change, even though you may be like, this is the best person for me. There might be other things that pop into your life that completely either bring you back down or just rise you to that next level. And you might outgrow that relationship, or you might grow closer. It's there's no guarantees in life, right? Other than what you choose to do today. And I was talking with someone the other day about like marriage and choice and everything. And for me, I was like, I always want to be in a relationship and choose to be in that relationship every day. I don't ever want to feel stuck. And so I don't know if I would ever get married again, because I don't want to feel stuck. And that could be like my traumas coming back to me, but I want the relationship to always be a choice, not like a cage. And so I think that's something that may be shifting in society too, where I do think marriage is very valuable, and I do think the commitment of marriage is very valuable. But I also think you need to choose to nurture your marriage every single day. And it has to be a conscious choice. And if you're not choosing to do that, then you really need to question whether or not this is a good relationship for you. Because it's just like plants. If you continue to water a plant every single day, it will continue, or not every day, but like continue to nourish your plant and water it when it needs to be watered, and give it the food and nutrients when it needs to, the food and nutrients, and it will continue to grow and thrive. But if you stop watering it and you stop giving it nutrients, then it will stop growing, and it will eventually wither and die. And so it's the same thing happens in any type of relationship. It happens with friendships, it happens with intimate relationships. It even happens with friendly relationships, family relationships. If you're not continuing to nourish that, then it's going to wither and die. And it has to be a conscious choice to continue to, and there's times where you, no matter what you do to water and give that plant nutrients, it, like I was saying to my friend who's a plant person, I'm like, sometimes no matter what I do, my plants die. And I was like, what do you do to make sure your plants live? And she was like, sometimes that happens, like especially where we live, where it's super dry and the winters are harsh, and sometimes keeping plants alive through our winters, even inside, is a really difficult thing. And so I was like, oh, okay. And that's something that happens with relationships too. No matter what you do, sometimes if you're a giver and you're a codependent, no matter what you do, that plant might still die because of outside sources that you can't control. And I think that's something that's really important to consider, is that relationships are essentially like plants. You need to continue to nourish them and continue to tend to them, but sometimes no matter what you do, it's still not going to work, because it is a two-way street, and there are outside forces that you can't always control.
I love that, Amanda. Outside forces that you can control. Life has no guarantees for tomorrow. Kamal says it in Gossip Talk shows that life has no guarantees for tomorrow. We don't know what will happen tomorrow when you enter a relationship. And for me, basically, I've learned, like Rachel was saying, I've learned to work on myself. And whenever there is a problem, like sometimes when I'm walking through my journey when it comes to relationship, there are some people who work on themselves and they want to change the other person. Like for me in the house, when I'm doing events, live events, my family come with me. We'll book a hotel, and when I'm doing event, they come with me. That's what I have. If I don't have money to actually take them with me, I can't do that event, because they need to understand who I am. And my children as well, when I'm doing like relationship events, they always come with me with their dad. And when I do events and when I'm finished, they're like, Mommy, you're bonkers. And I'm like, that's who I am. I love being bonkers. And I remember the other day when I was talking to someone and he was asking me a question. He wants to basically help me with the LinkedIn. And their dad goes, does this man knows what he's putting himself into? So I'm like, yeah, he knows. He's just watched my video. He knows what is basically, because when I'm doing live events, basically the chains that you see that have to go in, they have to go to someone, and because that's what a relationship does. There's chains of I'm not enough. There's a chains of who hurt me back then. There's chains of compatibility. If someone was never compatible with someone, a relationship breaks. Somebody will hold on to that. Men are not the same, but men are the same, but they still want to have a man. So you have to, before you enter a relationship, you have to make sure that you break all these chains. Like Rachel, you were saying that your spouse started saying, I don't like what you're becoming. It means they wanted that Rachel that is safe, that Rachel that basically agrees to everything. If you come to my house, no one agrees with anybody. You just have to work around. Even the children, I've basically taught my children to actually, if they feel that they're not happy with the decision that we are making, I've taught them to basically bring their case, but they have to have a case, and that case, it has to make sense why they are doing it, why they are challenging me, not just instead of getting stroppy and talk back. So they know that if I say let's do this, if they feel that it's not what they want to do, they know that they will explain that, but Mommy, I don't really want to do this. The reason why I don't want to do this, and if I understand it, and then I'm like, yeah, that's fine. It does make sense. So that's how we live in this house. We understand that no one is perfect. If you are not happy with something, scream it, say it, instead of saying I don't like a confrontation, I don't like this, I don't like this. And also taking ownership, like Rachel was saying, that she had to take ownership for her life. And I think it's very, very important basically to know what you want in life. And for me, basically, if I was to date someone who loves to control, I don't think I can cope within a week. I do not think I can cope a week for somebody to control my life. I don't think I can. And also, Amanda, you mentioned that people go to a relationship after relationship. Basically, you have to, if you want to basically to stay with one person, whatever your beliefs that might be, or the universe or God. For me, basically, what I realized is my relationship fell apart in 2009, and I entered another relationship in 2014. And when I entered for that journey from 2009, I had to work on myself, because I sat down and I had to be honest with myself. I was like, Nomsa, things got to change. And I realized that my relationship, it was the same pattern all the time. Same pattern. I would date someone for a long time, maybe 5 years, 4 years, but the relationship would just end up the same way. So I was like, I need to actually sit down and work on myself, and work on my boundaries, and work on my values, work on my communications. And I was someone before that I wouldn't tell somebody if I didn't want to do something, or let's say if we are taking takeaway, or we are having Chinese, if I didn't want Chinese, I wouldn't say anything. I would just go for it. Or if we are going to visit my in-laws, if I didn't feel like going, I'll just go for the sake of making people happy. So, or maybe Christmas dinners and stuff, the family stuff. So I wouldn't like do my own thing, but I had to work on myself and my communication, basically to send my message across, but not in a basically ego way, like to say I want to prove a point. Basically to live that normal life that has freedom, not holding back, not worrying about what people think. So I had to, there are so many things that I had to change. And also I had to be honest within myself as well, and allow myself to grow, and allowing myself to learn more about what is this relationship, understanding more about love, boundaries, and also like I'm a Christian, and also bringing God into my life and learning to pray, because I was basically telling myself that I'm a Christian, but I was a fake one, because I just go to church and go home, and when I get home I just fight with my spouse. They have arguments, but I didn't fight that much. And also the fight is because I never witnessed my parents. My parents never fight in front of me, but in my head, I believed that in relationship you don't fight, because I've never witnessed the fight in my family. So when my spouse, we are having an argument, it will affect me, because I'm like, I've never seen my mom or my dad or my stepmom fighting. Why are you fighting me? So those are the things that I had to learn, that people are different. My family chose to fight in secret, but it's not that they didn't fight. They did. Because when I started going through this journey, I asked my mom, I was like, was my dad innocent? It was like, your father? My dad is dead now. You'll be like, your father innocent? I don't think so. So start giving it all to me. So that's when I started realizing that actually they chose to not to fight in front of us. and also having step parents as well, and just watching how things were. And I expected my relationship to be like that, but then it's something that I had to learn, that people are different. Every person that you meet, they are different, the way they grow, the way they do things. So those are the things that I had to break away from, like have knowledge of the difference between different relationships, family relationship, that how we respond is always a choice, and the other person is a choice how they respond. But I didn't know all that. And I think I went about 3 or 4 psychologists and trying to find out why my relationship, I didn't get it until I left the other woman, the last person. I got home and then I was like, this is not working. So I decided to put a message on Facebook and say, my friends, I'm disappearing on Facebook for 40 days. I just basically did my work without social media, just me. And that's when I had my breakthrough. I got it that, okay, these psychologists, when they're saying this, they mean this. When they're saying this, they mean this. So I had to get all that, but through prayer. And that's when I basically had to have an understanding and allow myself. But since that moment, my journey of finding the love that I wanted, it was not God writing everything. It was me saying, God, you know what's in my heart. You know what I've been through. And you know the things that I desire in life. Bring me the man that you know that is going to complement my life, because I've been through a lot. I went fasting for 40 days and there was no joke. And when I met my spouse, after 40 days, I met him. It was funny. The whole mix up, it was also funny because when I go out, I don't drink, I don't smoke. So when someone is drunk, I don't really take them very seriously. But that day when my spouse was talking to me, I refused to give him attention. And to all my friends, they were, look at this poor man, he's been trying to get your attention all night. Can you just get the guy his misery, get him out of his misery? Just give him your number. His misery will be will be completely gone, and then we're all gonna have a good night here. So that's how I gave him my number. And 2 weeks later, he was like, I was like, oh, I remember you. And he was like, yeah. I was like, I didn't think you were going to call me. And he was like, I didn't call you because I didn't think you were going to pick up my calls because you didn't take me serious. But then when I started dating him, when he drinks, I realized the guy does not forget nothing. If you tell him off, he will remind you what you did when he's not drunk. So I was like, that's why he couldn't forget. So that's why it's important for somebody, when you enter a relationship, to understand what love is about, what comes with that love. Tony Robbins says you have to enter that person's world. For me, I call it the spirit of love, where you have to understand what love requires. A queen has to surrender to his king. The king has to surrender to his queen. And the queen has to surrender with the mindset of serving and giving. And the king has to surrender with the mindset of giving and receiving. And that's what I understand. And the list goes on. Over to you, Rachel.
Now, what was coming up for me as you were talking about that, and then especially just that last part about giving and receiving, was, another 2 words that can overlap on that would be student teacher. And for me, every relationship is a learning. It is for us to learn more about ourselves. And so when we're going to you get into a relationship and you become the student of learning about yourself through the teacher that is showing, because although they might be your partner, they're also going to teach you something, even if they don't realize that they're teaching you something. But every time they trigger you, that is your moment where a lesson is coming through. But we are so externally focused, and it's like about, well, they need to stop doing that. What they're doing is hurting me. What they're doing is unkind. And we're, pointing the fingers at the other person, when I think if people can start to go into relationships with the understanding that whenever this person that I'm in love with is going to trigger me, he or she is doing it to help me learn more about myself. And so instead of going in on and attacking and defending or whatever what's going on, is to look at it and go, right, what is it that I'm needing to learn right here? And it's about learning to give ourselves what it is that we need rather than expecting it from the other person. And at the same time, you're being exactly that mirror for them. So you're being a teacher also for them so that they can be the student of themselves. And yesterday I was speaking with a friend of mine who showed this perfectly. She was getting upset about the fact that he gives a lot of attention to whatever he's doing on his phone, and maybe it's looking at or having a conversation with other women, but it was about the attention. And when she realized, I said to her, well, what is it that she said? I know it's my ego. I know that I'm getting upset because he's giving attention. I said, yeah, he's giving the attention, but it's attention away from yourself. Do you give yourself the attention? What is it that you're asking for? What is it that you're needing right then? And are you able to give that to yourself? And it kept going, like throwing it back at him. So when I kept saying, no, look at yourself. Why are you getting triggered? Why is it irritating you? What is the anger beneath there? And when start to realize that it was all connected to back in childhood, to her relationship with her father, who, when he wasn't giving attention to the mother, it was most likely that he was off doing something that he shouldn't have been doing, so to say, right? And so in her little mind, well, not her little mind, but in the little mind of the little girl within her, the linkage was, if I'm not getting attention, there's a possibility he's going to cheat on me. And so, and on the other side with him was that he needs to give attention. From her perspective, her understanding was that he needs to keep telling her, because he wants to be liked. Look how people who give me attention, I'm liked, people like me. And so they were coming in, and there is a lesson for both of them to learn, which is about attention. But the attention, one is I need the attention to be liked, and the other one is if I don't get attention, someone's cheating on me. And so it's like those two things are very separate, and they need to be the individual themselves needs to go and look at like those belief systems that they hold, because they're making them behave in certain ways that are clashing with the person that they love. But when they work on themselves, those will dissolve, and then they will see and meet each other and give each other the equal attention that they want, because they'll understand that they can give themselves, one can give themselves the attention without needing it from the other, and the other one will know that I don't need to go out and get attention to be liked. So the whole thing just comes down into a more of a balance, whereas now it's out of balance. And that's what relationships are all about, is getting yourself into balance. But it's about getting yourself into balance so that you can come into the relationship balanced, if that makes any sense. So I went a bit off tangent then, but
as you were both speaking, I was thinking about the 5 love languages, and to think a little bit about, if you've read that book, what are your love languages, and then being able to clearly express those to whoever your partner is. And if you express them to them and they're still not getting it, then essentially that might be a time where you have to self-reflect on, is this relationship right for me? Because everybody has different love languages, and essentially whichever one you're more stronger pulled to is going to affect how you view the relationship. And when you can explain to that person, like for me, it's quality time. So I don't care about the quantity of time we hang out, it's the quality of time that we hang out. So it's like, are we doing something fun when we're hanging out? Are we making plans to do things that we enjoy together? Because the rest of the time I'm good by myself. Like, I've got things to do. I don't need somebody there all the time. I just want somebody who can be there for that quality time piece. And also the other one that is for me is the physical touch. And so I like somebody that's not like not public displays of affection, but like affectionate enough when you were together that I feel that they like care, right? And so essentially you have to know what it is that's your trigger, because for me the triggers are when we're not spending quality time together. That's a trigger for me. So I have to be able to explain that to them, and even be like, here, read this book. This explains why I'm triggered when we don't have quality time together. And I think that's something that you really like can grow into when you learn more about yourself. And there's another book called Attached, and it talks about being securely attached, anxiously attached, or avoidant. And so that's another really good book to read to learn so much about yourself, because it will show you why you're triggered by certain people's behaviors. So if you're anxiously attached and someone's avoidant, then you'll start to recognize those behaviors in different relationships, and then you'll be able to be like, oh, this is why I'm triggered. And then you can explain that to them, and say like, this is why I'm triggered by what you're doing, in a like calm and like researched almost way, to be able to communicate properly, and say like, if these things don't change, then this relationship isn't going to work for me, because this is going to be a constant trigger, because this is the way that like I can work to being securely attached, or I can work from being avoidant to securely attached. But you're always on the spectrum of attachment. And essentially, if you're with the wrong person, then you're going to either be anxious or avoidant, depending on, and if you can't have that communication and come back so that you're both in a secure relationship, then eventually the relationship's going to fail. But having those talking points, that it's not just you that's triggered by these, and why your makeup has allowed you to be triggered by these things, I think is something that's really, really important. And if you haven't read that book, it's one of the best books that I've ever read on relationships. So consider reading that one.
That's a really good point, what you just said about how people show love, because somebody might show their love in a way that is, they lots of cuddles, and they're very touchy-feely. And then you've got somebody else who maybe they just want, they give flowers, they give chocolates, they want to give you items. And then you've got other people who they want to hear it, they want to hear, I love you. And so, whether you hear it, you're feeling it, you're seeing it. If you get with somebody who likes to show it physically, and you've got somebody else who just wants to give it with gifts, and they don't like the physical, then you're going to already assume that someone doesn't love me the way. So you've got to look through different lenses to be able to see, how is it that my partner does love me, because it might be very different to how I like to show love. And when you get that understanding, it can make things a lot easier.
I think when you have that understanding, then you're able to communicate it in a way that's not like a triggered argument, right? You can say like, this is my love language, and I'm not seeing love, I'm not feeling love, because these are the things that I need to feel loved, and if it's not happening, then you're able to better evaluate what it is that your unique needs are, and be able to communicate them in a way. And you can either choose to grow together and work on feeding each other's love languages, or you're going to choose like, no, this isn't working, and you'll grow apart, right? But having those communication tools to be, instead of just blowing up about that love language not being met, you can have a calm conversation about what love language it is that you need, or what attachment style it is that you need, and how those things need to be fulfilled. And if you're not willing to work on it together and have calm conversations about it, then that relationship's never going to go anywhere. Or it's just going to be that same pattern over and over and over again. And you're going to be essentially, I said to one person, I said, we keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. That's literally the definition of insanity. So this can't continue anymore. no matter how we feel about each other, if we keep doing these same patterns over and over and over again, nothing's going to get better. So it's time to just part our ways. So essentially, I think that's something that's really important too, is if you look at what are the patterns in the relationship, are we repeating those same patterns and not growing? Or are we starting that pattern and then catching it and then being like, okay, we've caught it, and move on, and then you can grow together. And I think that's something that's super important.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Amanda and Rachel as well. And I think also is very important if you don't understand, because everyone has like Amanda, you were saying it, for you is quality time. And for me as well, if you buy me present, basically you can't impress me. But if you give me quality time, then yes. So everyone is different. What's yours, Rachel?
I'm very much on like that. I need to feel it, and that's through probably having deep level conversations.
Okay.
Feeling understood.
Yeah.
You know, I do like the physical contact, of course, and all, and that. I mean, I like it all. You know, I like to be given. You know, like to have little flowers, surprises, whatever. But if that wasn't available, at the core for me is probably I need to feel that deep level of understanding, and that comes through communication.
Basically, normality of a relationship, that's normal. That's normal, but we don't do normal, do we? We do complication. I actually agree with you girls, because you have to, in a relationship, we all learn. It's like we are growing each and every single day. Like if I look at myself, who I was 5 years ago and who I am now, like if I go home in my family in Africa, my mom knows that they can't talk any secret when I'm around, or they secret like being suspicious of people or trying to find out what this person is up to. They know that they can't. When I arrived at home, because my mom knows that if I want to know something, I have to ask questions. And that is in a relationship as well. If there is something that you don't understand, the love language, you can read books, but at the end of the day, why not ask the manufacturer? Like Les Brown says, ask the person, how do they like to be treated? The books basically gives you the skills of how to basically to create your own things based on the character of a person. But there are some people that will go and read the book and wanting to behave, their spouse to behave the same person that they've read in the book. So it doesn't work like that. So whoever does that, please don't. And I agree with Rachel and Amanda. Get to know the person. Be a student where you want to know the person. Ask questions. It's very, very important. If you want to get to know your spouse, ask questions. For me in the house, they call me nosy one. But I'm curious. I ask questions. That's how I get to know people. I ask questions. If there is something I don't understand with my spouse, or I want to know about him, I ask questions. And he's like, oh my God, you were ever asking questions? I'm like, but then he tell me what I need to know. But it's nice that you get to know somebody by asking questions. When I go home, they cannot basically talk and say, what is this one doing? I'm like, go and ask them. If you want to know what they get up to, the person is there. Why are you all sitting here wondering what people get up to? Go and ask. And my mom will be giving an eye, not while she's here quiet. And when I go to the spot when they're talking, they all go quiet. I'm like, oh, I know what you guys are doing. So they know that if they need to know something, for me, basically, that is something that has carried me for all these years, that you have to ask questions to somebody. And it does help you to get to know that person, to get to know their values, why they believe the values that they believe, why they believe the things that they believe, why these things that they say makes them happy. And also, Rachel, you were talking about the person that when you were talking to them, you realize it was back to their childhood as well. For me, basically, my biggest problem was when a man tells me off. I'm like, I was raised by my parents. My parents never told me off. My father, I was never a princess, but he never ever told me off. He would sit me down. If I do something wrong, he will not let me get away with it. He will sit me down and explain. So if I enter a relationship and someone lose the plot, I'm like, what the heck is going on now? So I'm like, it's something new that I basically didn't have a clue what is going on. Even my grandparents, basically, even my sister, sometimes she's like, what was my grandmother thinking? She will sit down with me at the age of 9 and explain things about marriage and do all these things, basically to make me understand about the world. And my mom as well does the same. My mom will be going out, she'll be pointing, you see that one? That man, that type is a man that just want to take your clothes off and test your body and they leave. So she'll be like telling me as it is. So I'll be like, Mom, calm down. So she'll be pointing this one, the character. Like when they come in and they talk to me, she'll be saying, at least you know what you're getting yourself into. So I grew up with the parents that explains things. So when I entered a relationship, if a man start being basically not being nice, for me it was a shock and something that I had to work through it. I had to work through myself and having an understanding. And now, and also after I worked myself, actually, after I did my personal development, I'll go out with my spouse, and if he dance and somebody comes in and they want to dance with him, if he thinks that I'm gonna go and rescue him, I'll just laugh and just walk away and say, you put yourself in that situation, get yourself out. And I'll be like, and I'm like, what do you want me to do? You want me to come and say, excuse me, this is my spouse? I'm like, that's not how it works in the real world. You have to excuse them. So he'll be like, Nomsa, you are so mean. I'm like, something that I had to learn the hard way. Just because somebody's dancing with you, it doesn't mean they like you. So sometimes people dance because they are happy. They just want to dance, and they'll be like, seriously, you want me to keep guessing? I'm like, yeah. Just because a woman comes in and they dance with you on the dance floor, it does not mean they fancy you. So it's something that I had to learn the hard way, that sometimes I have to let things be. And sometimes I'll go out and I'll be dancing on the dance floor with him. And I leave, go and sit down, and then some woman will come in and they start dancing with him. But basically that person, they are dancing because I was dancing. They don't know that we are together. And then he'll be looking, is she gonna get me out? What is going on in their families? And also I have this thing where I live with my spouse 24/7. If I go out with his family, he has to spend time with his family. I let him be, and I spend time with somebody else. So that's what I do. But for me to be in that stage is something that I had to learn the hard way, to be independent, to know that not everybody else, when a man sees someone with boobies, it does not mean that they want to get in there. No, it doesn't. So I had to learn to respect people, because sometimes when people sees people chatting, they're like, oh, what is he doing? What is he doing with my spouse? That's not always the case. So it's something that when you work on your confidence, and even when I don't know, some people, their beliefs. For me, basically, I believe that every person that comes in my way, they're not there basically for me to control. They're there to live their own life, but there are boundaries that the respect that person has to respect me. If those boundaries are violated, then my principles are, I need to be alone. I don't have to be with the men just because I love them, or because I'm scared of being alone. If the boundaries are violated, I have to live my life on my own, walk away from that relationship. And those are the things, the principles that I've put in place. I live with someone. If they respect my principles, they respect my boundaries, and they don't control me, we live a normal life, loving each other. And when they are sad, they tell me that they are sad, not pretending. So I will not date anyone that pretends. I will not do that. So those are the principles that I've put in place. It's like take Nomsa as you find her. It's like I love my earphones. My earphones are my life. I basically, whenever I go, I'm listening to my music and I'm laughing. And my neighbors, when we moved out, she was like, I miss you with your earphones. Every time I see you walking on the street, you'll be laughing, and it gives me joy. Now you're gone. So that's the life that I'm living, even at home. I just love my music. And when someone is sad, for me, the only thing that I can do is to say sorry and try to work out how I can make things better, and forgiveness as well. And that's the only thing that I can do. I cannot do more, like give my energy. And if somebody make mistakes, you want to crucify me for 6 months, not allowed. Over to you, Rachel. I think you're muted, Rachel. What's happened to your audio? Hi. Do you want to take over, Amanda? Is your audio okay?
You want me just to like sum up with something, because we're already past an hour?
Oh yeah.
I think that if you are in a relationship and you really love someone, but you know that there are some patterns that keep repeating that are not healthy for you, then you need to take a really good look at what it is that you want, and do some inner work, and then be able to have a conversation with them about what is working and what's not working. And then if it continues down that path of not working, you need to lovingly be able to let go and say goodbye, and step into your own power. Rachel?
Thank you so much. Rachel, do you want to type, because we're leaving now, type your words of encouragement. I'll say it out loud for you. I don't know what happened to your audio. Or do you want to quickly come out and then come back and see where that works?
I think she just wants to wait. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so my words of encouragement as well is basically, if you are in a relationship and you're staying just because you love that person. Okay, is it working? Maybe press something or internet or something, I don't know. Just type and then I'll tell the audience your words of encouragement. Just type a few lines. Yeah, just don't stay in a relationship just because you love someone. Love there's more. Love comes with more things. In order for that foundation to stand, it comes with loads of things. And a man has to know their role, and a woman has to know their role. A man is a provider in a relationship. A woman is a provider in a relationship. A man is a leader in a relationship. A woman is a mentor. A man is a teacher in a relationship. A woman is an inventor in a relationship. They fall pregnant and then they give birth, which is an inventor. They bring life, basically. A man is a cultivator, and a woman, she's a developer. A man, she's a designer. He designs life, how he wants his family to live, the culture, the town where he has this big vision. A man has to have a vision, and a woman, she gives life. She designs order to the family. She brings unity to the family. So you got to understand all those things when it comes to relationship. So So Rachel, you are here. Anything else? Okay. So we lost Rachel and we've been here over an hour. I'm going to say to everyone, if you want to get in touch with us, please get in touch with us at Ngozi Talk Show's page and follow coaches and speakers if you have any questions. And live with grace, everyone, and God bless.